You complete lowlifes. I don't even want to be with you, but hey ho, 0 minutes to 3 is the time. Carry on, mate.
You can still go to the pub if you're smoking. Well, yeah, but it's not the same, is it? I can still go to the pub, but I have to drink a soft drink. Well, that's not really why I go to the pub. Okay, well, I go to the pub for a soft drink. Yeah, but you're a weirdo.
And they say, oh, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck. Boots on the ground. Boots on the ground, right? Something that we haven't seen since World War II, right? They say they haven't seen anything like it since World War II. No, we're not getting boots on the ground. We don't need them.
Hello and welcome back to Last Orders. I'm Tom Slater, editor of Spiked, joined as I am in every single episode by Chris Snowdon from the IEA. How you doing, Chris? Happy New Year.
Hi, Tom. Yes, Happy New Year, listeners and viewers. We are doing this for the first time in ages remotely because we couldn't be bothered to get together, could we, Tom, this early in the year? But we'll be back in the studio next time, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Chris is doing dry January as he does every single year, so there's no point bringing him in for the usual convivial drink and podcast. We're also delighted to be joined by a very, very special guest, and that is radio's own James O'Brien. How are you doing, James?
How am I doing? I'm not feeling particularly happy that I've lowered myself to be on with scum like you, if I'm honest with you, but here I am, hey ho.
I mean, to come out the blocks with that, I mean, you did accept the invitation. I'm a little bit confused by it.
I accepted it. I didn't really have much of a choice, to be honest. Keith pulled me through to you and he said, you better go on. I didn't want to. I was utterly discombobulated. I didn't want to have to look at either of you, but did I have a choice? No. It's such a shame that I've now got to look at both of you. You dumps of human beings, you absolute scum. You complete lowlifes. I don't even want to be with you, but hey ho, 0 minutes to 3 is the time. Carry on, mate.
We should say that, of course, that isn't the real James O'Brien, but it is the great Tony Lapidus. Many people will know him from X for his excellent impressions, just like that one. How are you doing, Tony? Out of character. Did you have a good Christmas and New Year?
I did. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me on. Yes, I've had a good Christmas. I've had a great New Year. And, I've had a good New Year's Eve. We'll see what the year holds for me, but it's great to be on with both of you.
I'm sure many people listening and watching will be aware of you, will have seen many of your clips, but you've been making a lot of waves online recently. Great impressions, not just James O'Brien, but many more characters that will reappear over the course of this podcast and this discussion. But Tony, how did you get into this lark? How did you kind of get into the world of online impressions of pundits and political figures?
Yeah, so it started offline, obviously. It actually started when I was a kid, as it probably does with most impressionists. It all starts in the playground. It all starts with the teachers. The teachers resent you forever from a very young age because you kind of take the mick out of them from a very young age and they cotton on to who the impressionist is in school. And then one day I just decided, basically, I always did impressions for friends, always family members, of cartoons and of everything, basically. And then I just one day decided this is either going to get used just on friends and family, or you can give it a go and see whether people like it online. So I just went for it.
And how do you pick your targets or your victims? Because I think a lot of the recurring characters are people who are either loved or loathed in our sort of world of political commentary and all the rest of it.
Yeah, so it started, originally I was doing mainly boxing characters, and I was doing like shows like The Sopranos and, big shows like that, Breaking Bad and things like that. Gangster films I was particularly into, so I used to kind of imitate them. And then it kind of evolved into the political scene. I always had this bank of people that I could always do because I've always been kind of interested in politics, but I never did them because I always thought they were kind of divisive and what was the point of it. And I thought that I would be expressing potentially too many opinions that were maybe unpopular, but, obviously you can never please everybody no matter what your opinion is. And then I just, kind of the war happened in 23 between Israel and Hamas. And then I decided like there was just too many of them built up in me. And as I watched things like Piers Morgan and I watched more and more shows about it and heard commentary and podcasts particularly, I just thought, well, I think podcast is my thing. I think that's what I so many of these niche people I can do. So I just picked them one by one,
I think impersonations are fantastic. It's rare, I think, to find an impressionist who can not only like do the voice perfectly, but also do the facial expressions and also has the gags. And you even do the laughs, which I imagine must be incredibly difficult. Your Tucker Carlson and Ricky Gervais laughs. As on, I wouldn't even know where to begin imitating a lot.
It doesn't mean anything. The Tucker Carlson one, that's evolved. They all evolved. The Ricky Gervais one is a relatively new one. I've never done him before. And oh, I've never done him before. But he was new, Ricky Gervais. The one when I never put him out before, but that's a new one because his Mortality just came back out, and I'm obviously a big fan of his. Yeah, the facial expressions. I always think, if I can just answer what you were asking then, I always think that facial expressions are just a massive part of impressions that a lot of impressionists don't focus on, and body language as well. Not to be critical of impressionists, there's fantastic, so many talented ones out there, but I always felt that body language and facial expressions just kind of came to me very naturally. I can be in a conversation with somebody, anybody, and the way that they are, not to make you two feel insecure or anything that I'm analysing, but I'm kind of on it immediately. It just goes in automatically, and I pick up on that. So I incorporate them into my impressions as well the best I can.
Is there anyone you can't do that you'd like to do?
Yeah, funnily enough, I'd have loved to have done Eminem. I know it sounds really funny. I could never do him. For some reason, I just couldn't do him. But that's the only one that counts. That's you've got me there. But I think that was the one. That's one that comes automatically to mind because I just feel there was so much I could have done with him comedically. But if you're talking about political people, well, I've been working on my Ben Shapiro, but you can ask me about that at the end when I've done some decent ones if you want, and I'll give you a Ben Shapiro attempt. I'm working on at the moment.
Can you do Richard Madeley?
Less so.
That's always the one that impresses me.
You're just treating poor Tony like Grok here.
Yeah.
Do this, do that. Don't.
How it works is that I basically have, like I said, a whole bank of them, and as I watch new people, like this year, that they're, like I said, at the end we can go into them if you want. I just try to add. I'm always trying to move with it, so that you've got your bread and butter ones that people love and they're popular, and not the Ricky Gervais, the Tucker Carlsons and all that. But I always think you should just kind of keep moving. Don't stay exactly the same. So for 2026, I do have ones that I want to add to it because I'm always trying to expand my repertoire. So not to stay relevant per se, but just to stay up to date with it, and also add something fresh.
In the interest of bringing some of those characters back into the podcast and discussion, it's going to be a bit of a fun experiment. This, I dare say, a fusion of nanny state chat and brilliant political impressionism. But Chris, shall we start off with a proper nanny state story? And that is the drink driving rules. So Labour have announced this consultation, supposedly a revolution in road safety. The thing that has caught most people's eye, I think it's fair to say, is the prospect that in England and Wales, they're going to reduce the amount that you will safely be able to drink, meaning that even 1 pint might be a dangerous business. Do you want to tell us a bit more about this and what you think about it?
Well, it's not going to affect me because when I'm driving, I always have at least 5 pints. So they can lower it as much as they like, I mean, there is sort of a serious point in that, actually, which is this is not going to do anything about people who get drunk and get in a car, It seems to me yet another example. It's almost like a narco-tyranny, isn't it, really? It's that, there are people out there, there's still like more than 200 deaths a year from drink driving. Very often it's the driver, but still, it's clearly a preventable cause of death. And rather than deal with the people who are drunk, remember we used to call this drunk driving, right? There's kind of a sign of the times that we changed to drink driving. But it was the people who are drunk are the problem. People who've had 1 or 1.5 pints are not the problem. And I'll prove that in a second by referring to what's been going on in Scotland. But rather than clamp down on drink drivers, which requires, I think, a combination of like the old scary public health information campaigns and adverts, along with proper policing, particularly in December. They say, well, we'll just lower the limit for the basically the law-abiding, reasonable people who just want to have a pint or so when they're on the way back from the office in the evening or pop off to a rural pub. It's rather like, dealing with gun crime in inner cities by hassling farmers over their shotguns. It's always the low-hanging fruit, sending a message out there, which actually just has no effect. And I mentioned Scotland for a good reason, which is that Scotland did this. Probably mentioned this before on the pod, I can't remember, but 2014, Scotland did exactly what the government is talking about now, lowering the drink drive limit to the same amount as is basically the standard in the EU, which I think is a bit of a giveaway about why this appeals to Labour and the SNP. And good quality peer-reviewed studies found, 2 of them, found it had absolutely no effect on road traffic accidents. In fact, one of the studies said that if you compare it to England and Wales, actually the Scottish road accident statistics went up. But there was a negative effect on the pub trade. There was fewer pints sold in pubs, more pints sold in the off licenses. And so the only effect that this had was basically negative, if you care about pubs. No public health benefit whatsoever. This seems to me the kind of thing that devolution was made for. You know, that we have these natural experiments, and Wales or Scotland tries something, and then we see if it works, and if it does, we copy, and if it doesn't, when we don't. But Scotland, as with minimum pricing, has tried something. It clearly hasn't worked, and yet we're copying it just for the sake of it, as far as I can see.
So, Chris, before we bring our next guest in for a slightly different perspective, what impact is this going to have on rural pubs? I mean, we've heard a lot about how the whole sector is really under the cosh at the moment, but surely this is going to be the death knell for a lot of them.
Yeah, that's what's happening in Scotland. And the interesting thing about what's happening in Scotland, if you speak to people up there, it's not just that they're missing out on those people who might pop in on a sunny day for a couple of pints of cider. It's that people are scared that they're going to be over the limit the next day. And that's why actually the neo-temperance lobby like this, because it's an anti-drinking policy. So like I said for Spike this week, it's a temperance policy. It's not really a road safety policy. So people are not sure how much they can drink. With the current level, people know they can go out and have 4 or 5 pints. It's not going to be a problem the next day. But they're not quite sure. They're probably wrong, actually. Unless they're drinking a huge amount, they're probably going to be fine the next day. But the Scottish government, I believe, then started, when this came in, started doing morning patrols, not evening patrols, but extra morning patrols to try and scare the bejesus out of motorists. So that's what's really clobbering the pub trade. And the people who are in favour of this outside the government I just hate them more than anybody else. Because it's just the horrible combination of people have been on at me on Twitter going, bearing in mind, this isn't going to work, right? So there is no sort of benefit to be angling for. You've got people who just don't like motorists. You've got people who just don't like alcohol. You've got the people who, the pub gentrifiers, you know, the people who were really in favour of the smoking ban because even though it was going to close loads of pubs, it would get rid of the riffraff. And then finally you've got the people you always get with these kind of incremental restrictions and liberty going like, well, what's the big deal? It's only a small change. Okay, in a way it is quite a small change, but for zero benefit and quite a lot of damage to the pub trade. And yet you get these people saying like, well, come on, you can still go to the pub. Exactly what they said before the smoking ban, by the way. You can still go to the pub if you're smoking. Well, yeah, but it's not the same, is it? I can still go to the pub, but I have to drink a soft drink. Well, that's not really why I go to the pub. Okay, well, I go to the pub for a soft drink. Yeah, but you're a weirdo. You're a cyclist. You know, we don't need to hear from you, but we hear from these people all the time. These are the people I think who are responding to public consultations on these issues, and I despise them.
Well, while we're speaking of cyclists, let's bring in our next guest here, a noted columnist for the Mail on Sunday, Peter Hitchens. How are you doing, Peter? What's your view on all of this?
Yes, I think I should, if I was getting to the road, if you don't mind. I said I had a surprise for you before, and here it is. My suspenders are here and ready to go. By the way, I cycled here in the heat to get here, and I'm, believe it or not, I'm in two minds about this. On the one hand, I believe this is an absolute disgrace and it's awful. The government and the stop the Labour government, which I warned about for years, nobody bothers to listen. YouTube never bothers to listen. I know that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking this ridiculous and ludicrous question. What do I think about this? Why is she interfering? What is his reason? At the same time, and I do believe that I can hold a simultaneous opinion at the same time, which is contradictory somewhat. I would also say, for what reason should people be drinking alcohol, especially over the 3.5 ABV zone? I occasionally drink at right-hand skippers, but after lunchtime I can't drink anything. But I do think at the same time, why should people be allowed to have any fun with alcohol at all? Have you ever thought about that?
Have you ever thought about that, Chris?
I bumped into Peter on a tube platform on the 13th of November last year.
Yeah, yes, I was cycling. You bumped into me and not the bike originally appreciated it, so I still don't. And you owe me a long written letter of apology, by the way.
That's actually not true, is it, Peter? Because what actually happened was, well, you happened to be on the same platform. I went over to say hello. And the reason I remember it being the 13th of November will become clear in a second. And he said...
Say hello. It's totally revisionist history, but carry on.
Let me speak. Let me finish.
You finish. Excuse me.
And he said, I'm on my way to the Daily Mail's office, as he does every day. Comes down from Oxford just to go to the office.
Mail on Sunday, which is gets very upset about that.
Well, it's, yeah, but it's down in my office, to be fair.
I won't interrupt you because you asked me so that you finish, but don't poke at me.
And he said, clearly felt the need to explain why he was on the underground rather than riding a bike. And he said, I never cycle on the 13th.
I don't. That's true. I don't. I never cycle on the 13th. I can't imagine why I said that, because I don't. Probably because for what reason was I not cycle on the 13th? But you did bump into me, and yes, I'm still waiting. Do you have any response to what I just said? Are you ever going to send me that long written letter of apology, or am I going to be waiting indefinitely?
Are you going to accept that you're wrong about the daylight savings issue?
I'm never going to accept that I'm wrong, because I'm not wrong, and you know I'm not wrong. Why should people have more daylight? I insist that people stay inside and be misanthropic and be darker and more miserable. The more miserable Britain is, the better. It's remarkable to see it happen in real time, the abolition of Britain. And I think that should happen in darkness.
Do you think you might cheer up a bit if you smoked a bit of marijuana?
How dare you? What have you got me on this show for under false pretenses? Have you got me on here? Excuse me, allow me to grab my pillow. Have you got me on here in order to discuss drugs for an hour? I don't wish to discuss drugs. You know probably well. You've not bothered to read a single word of what I've written or said, have you? You've not bothered. Why would you be asking me about drugs? You know that I'm for the criminalization of it. You know, and I'm equally for the criminalization of alcohol as well, pure for the reasons as I gave, but not for the reason that Keir Starmer, this tross, was to implement it for. No. Although I will have Russell Brand did offer me a spliff a few years ago. I may take him up on that. And I may produce a video on the effects of it.
And Peter, while we still got you, has Lucy Letby responded to your letters yet?
Lucy Letby has not responded to my letters. I think that the entire case was mishandled. I think that the evidence was submitted in a way that is not congruous with legal proceedings. And I don't wish to further comment on that. Call me a contrarian if you will, but don't expect me to like it.
I suppose we should close this section by hearing as well a little bit from the man himself, the Prime Minister, the person who is fronting this latest crackdown on drink driving, something that we're a big fan of on this show. So Keir Starmer, why are you bringing this in at this time?
Well, look, first of all, let me be absolutely clear. We want to bring this in with the full force of the law, and we believe that it's going to create jobs and save lives. And that's my intention. This is a government of service, and the more that we can encroach on your personal freedom and liberty, the better our government will serve.
But how is it going to create jobs? Surely it's going to destroy jobs and rural pubs and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I understand your concern completely, but the reason that it will is because, let me be absolutely clear, AI is the future. It will create artificial intelligence. And another thing that I was actually thinking that I've discussed with my cabinet was actually installing a little breathalyzer on the side so that we know absolutely everything about you, and so that we can issue you with digital ID cards, know exactly how much alcohol you have. And this is all in the interest of AI and creating jobs and saving lives.
So, Keir, you were told a hilarious joke in the House of Commons this week about reform and their connections supposedly with Russia. Are you going to continue with this kind of comedy every week in PMQs?
Well, you're going to actually have to remind me which joke it was, because this is the first I personally have heard of it as Tony. But if you want to know another thing, I do have a fantastic sense of humour, which is why Donald Trump likes me so much. That's what I want to be absolutely clear about. I've got a very special relationship with Donald Trump, and it's in no small part because of my absolutely clear and a brilliant sense of humour.
To be absolutely clear, you said Merry Christmas to everybody, and what was it, Tom? Can you remember? Something to do with...
It can't have been that good, can it, if you don't remember it?
You're a natural comedian, because it's a Keir, if I may say so.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, this is probably one of the reasons why I'm going to be re-elected, because I'm just so funny. It's the charisma in me that people are just drawn to it. It's just a gravitational pull. And again, this is the reason why I'm able to preserve the special relationship between myself and the United States. Let me be absolutely clear on that. In order to create jobs and save lives, by the way.
Thank you so much, Keir, for your time. But that brings us actually very neatly, Chris, onto our next topic, which very much involves the special relationship, very much involves Donald Trump, which is the audacious assault on Venezuela, which We got into it on the Spike podcast this week, but I think what we want to focus on here, Chris, is maybe some of the pearl clutching which attended it. There was a lot of conversation about international law, a lot of fear that Donald Trump going in and taking out Nicolas Maduro would potentially lead to something unthinkable, like the invasion of Ukraine. Do you want to talk a bit about how you found the discourse around this particular?
Well, it's just these sort of dinosaurs, mostly in political journalism, who still think that somehow, Brazil and Russia and China look up to us, and the only reason they're not invading other countries, except of course Russia has invaded another country and China probably will at some point soon. The only reason they don't do it is because they look to the West for moral guidance. And if we misbehave in any kind of way or break so-called international law, which doesn't and never has really existed in any meaningful way, they're suddenly going to become brutal, real politique types who go around pushing their weight around, which of course is what they do, what they've always done, and what to a large extent we've always done, America's always done. And I'm not saying that there's no such thing as a rules-based political order as an ideal, but it is only really an ideal, and it keeps getting time and again we see that it doesn't actually exist, right? That every war is illegal, really, because the UN never really says, "Oh, you can have this as a legal war," and what would it mean anyway? So you're just left with these rather pathetic people who all they care about is sending out a message. A bit like the drink driving thing, and to some extent, it's like, we've got to send the right message. We've got to send the right message to China. As with the net zero thing, everyone knows that China couldn't care less whether the UK or any other country goes net zero. In fact, they'd be pleased for us to go net zero because it means more industrial activity for them. But there are these kind of people stuck, I guess, in the 90s, writing for the Financial Times, who still believe that dictators around the world look to us for moral guidance, and that Donald Trump, by having this illegal special operation, whatever he called it, that's suddenly going to give free rein to Putin. Well, obviously Putin already feels he has free rein. The most ridiculous tweet I saw was from somebody for the Financial Times saying that, if America goes in and captures the leader of Venezuela, then Putin will go to Ukraine and try and capture Zelensky. Well, that's exactly what he tried to do in 2022. That was the whole plan, was to do that. He wasn't held back because the USA hadn't done it yet. So I think it's a kind of another example of some of these people living in not even the past, like living in a romanticized past that never actually existed.
Because we're all about debate here, let's bring James back in. James O'Brien, he's still been waiting dutifully on the line. I'm sure there's a lot to disagree with there for you, James. What do you think?
Do you know, I find it absolutely disgusting that you would even say a thing like that. How can you think that maybe there's something even remotely good in what Donald Trump, the vile Donald Trump, the poisonous Donald Trump, the unbelievably stupid Donald Trump has just pulled off? You can't go into another person's or nation's country and just invade its sovereignty. Do I need to explain to both of you two dimwits why? Do I really need to explain that? Well, all right, I won't let you answer. Don't try and speak. Don't try to interrupt me. It's because, don't you know that Donald Trump might invade you next? Don't you know that he might invade your studio? What is to stop him? He reminds me. Do you know who he is? Quite literally, he's literally the Godfather. He's Hyman Roth. He now is the guy. I don't know if you heard my monologue recently the other day about how having sympathetic people in the White House to Hyman Roth and Michael Corleone, but that's who he is, and people don't see it. I just find it utterly discombobulating, and I think it's appalling that you would even say it. And if you were actually on my radio show right now, I would have turned you down half an hour ago. Flipping heck!
Your response to this, Chris? That's quite a strong challenge to your position there.
I'll try and respond seriously, in a sense, which is...
I'm not going to take you seriously, mate, no matter how seriously you try to be, but you crack on.
I'm never very keen to see military aggression anywhere, particularly. But there are a lot of people kind of still living with Iraq brain, For a lot of people, Iraq not having WMDs was kind of the defining political moment of their lives, and people on the Question Time audience have never shut up about it ever since. Now, personally, I never really did think that Iraq was much of a threat to the United Kingdom at the time, and I wasn't in favour of that particular war just because I thought it just wouldn't work. And similarly, Afghanistan, I was doubtful it would work. But if they had worked, if I'd been confident they would work and we could just replace one dictator and a flourishing liberal democracy would come in its place, I don't think I'd be against it. I'm kind of a consequentialist when push comes to shove. It's just seemed to me that it was never going to happen in a country that hasn't ever had democracy. And in fact, it turns out a lot of these places, the dictators are keeping the even worse people under wraps, whereas Venezuela, I'm much more optimistic about, because this is a country that's traditionally been democratic, quite prosperous. Decent people who've unfortunately fallen under the power of basically the dictator. Who's still at least two elections. So I'm more optimistic that you can just take this guy out and have another election and plop somebody back in. So I don't think it's anything like the same as the Western excursions into Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, or all these other places.
That was one of the most ridiculous summaries that I've ever heard on national radio. You humiliated yourself, and all I can describe you as, if you'll allow me before I go, is you are a disgusting, vile, bilious, toxic dump of a human being. Simon Conway's here with your headlines. Carry on, mate.
Such a good impression. Thank you so much, James O'Brien.
Tufton Street, that was Mr. Trick there.
The street next. Yeah, that was James O'Brien, the thorn in the side of Chris and all of his friends in the Tufton Street bunkhouse where they all operate and plot. Finally, for this segment and for all of our stellar array of guests, we should talk to the man who's at the centre of all of this, who is the Commander-in-Chief of the US military, who oversaw this audacious raid. President Trump, how are you doing, sir? What's your thoughts at the moment?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for having me on. You're very kind. And what do you want to know? I mean, I do the most fantastic thing, the likes of which the world has never seen. You've never seen anything like it, right? Right? Look at you over there smoking your vape, right? It kind of looks like the smoke that was caused on Venezuela, right, Tom? We did a fantastic job. But what do you want to know?
What happens next? Have you worked out who's going to run Venezuela? Have you got a plan? I mean, because some people are saying you've got no clue what's going to happen next in that country.
Well, you know who says that, don't you? Stupid people. Are you asking me, are you stupid? You must be a stupid person, too. No, we got a plan. We have a plan. They've been saying that for so long. They say, he doesn't have a plan. No, I have a plan. We're going to run it, and we're going to take the oil, and we're going to do some fantastic things for the people of Venezuela too, because it's not just about the United States. You know that quite frankly better than anybody when you think about it. But no, we've got a fantastic plan, and it's just going to be great, quite frankly. They say you're going to go in. They say, oh, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get some boots on the ground, right? Something that we haven't seen since World War II, right? They say they haven't seen anything like it since World War II. No, we're not getting boots on the ground. We don't need them. And I'll tell you what, I got my eye on another place. And actually, you're reminding me of it, Tom, because of your background. You know what it is, don't you, right? Greenland. We got to get it. I don't know if people can see this or they're just listening, but Tom's got a beautiful green land behind him. It's beautiful. And we want some of that green land. Maybe we should just take it from you. In fact, James O'Brien described earlier, right? He said, we might invade you next. Well, I see that Greenland, and he might just be right about that, right, Bert? He might be right about that I will say.
This is the best episode we've ever done. We should.
Well, thank you. Your ratings are going to be great, by the way. They say, get Trump for the ratings, right? And I do. I bring fantastic ratings. Should I take the wig off, or do you have more?
Chris,
more
you got anything for President Trump, or should we welcome Tony back so we can wrap up here?
And make sure it's not a stupid question, by the way. Not like the friend Tom just asked. That was a stupid question. But
I can only apologise,
okay,
Mr. President. Tony, before we let you go, we just want to ask you quickly the two questions. As Tony, if you had to have one band, what would it be?
Yeah.
Or you can have a couple.
I'm going to have to have two. Because I gave this one serious thought. I might be unpopular with both of you after this. Firstly, I don't know if either of you are motorbikers. I would ban engines on motorbikes. I would have police go around and smash every motorbike engine that makes a noise above a certain volume. Do you ever have it when you're just sitting there and a motorbike kind of goes by and the engine is so loud in a 500-meter radius in every direction that you're just like, why would you buy that? I can't figure out why anybody would actually want it. And then the second one, that's kind of a thing of mine. If ever I'm in a conversation and I hear a motorbike engine, I'm just like, please ban that, somebody. Which Keir Starmer might end up doing, by the way. The other thing is, again, this might maybe be unpopular, and I think even dog owners would agree with me on this. Dog owners are non. If you are a repeat offender of not carrying a bag on you when you're taking your dog for a walk, I would have you have an ankle bracelet put around you so you never go onto the streets again.
House arrest.
House arrest forever. If you've not got a bag on you and you're a dog walker, but I think most dog owners would agree with me on that. But has that made me unpopular with you? Or
No, not at all. I like both of those very much.
No, I mean, I agree with both. Well, the second one is just obeying the law, and it's a pretty reasonable law.
Well, the house arrest is maybe a tougher sanction than we used to.
You gotta get tough. You see, you gotta get tough. You gotta be vicious.
So, Tony, before we actually let you go, is there any impressions that you're working on? And also, where can people find you if by some miracle they haven't come across your work so far?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that last question because I forgot about it. So I can be found on X, particularly YouTube and Instagram are the main ones I work on. So it's Tony Lapidus, and I'm there and I put all my material up there. So please find, follow, subscribe, whatever it is. People that I'm working on at the moment, I'm working a bit on Ben Shapiro, which I will. Ben Shapiro. I mean, again with the facial expressions, he will say something like,
"What Donald Trump has managed to pull off was insane, literally, absolutely insane." And people say that he's a social conservative. Who gives a shit? Yeah.
That's what I'm working on at the moment. I'm also working on. I'm working on Rubio. Are you familiar? I know, like, do you follow all like even his sensitive statement? Well, look, that's just a fact. What the president has said, he actually delivers. What the president says he's going to do, he actually delivers. And I think people are very happy. Look, we tried to figure this thing out diplomatically, but they didn't want to do it. So the president was left with no choice but to follow the military option.
That is good, because that's a subtle one, Rubio. It's not like as out there.
No, it's not. But I've got my eye on him because I think he'll be making a presidential run eventually. So also, so again, it's a bit niche, which I do. Bernie Sanders, shall I? I don't care whether you're Russia doing it to Ukraine or China doing it to Taiwan, or you're the United States of America doing it to Venezuela. It is wrong, it is illegal, and it is immoral.
That's great.
And that's basically the final one I'm working on, or I've done, if there's time, is actually Christopher Hitchens, who speaks similar to his brother, but he has a different intonation. You may remember, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I have made it a particular personal mission of mine that I have dubbed Operation Resurrecting Christopher, or even the Second Coming of Christopher, which you will no doubt know. And I will add, if I may, if time permits, that if he were around today and he did not like my impersonation of him, no doubt he would be saying that I should be standing in the street selling pencils from a cup. And with that, I yield, ladies and gentlemen, President, comrades, and friends.
What a note to end on. Thank you so much, Tony. What a hell of an episode. It's been an absolute roller coaster. I would urge anyone, if you haven't seen Tony's stuff, go out, check it out. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Last Orders. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and click the bell so you never miss another spiked video. If you're listening to this on your podcast app, make sure you subscribe there and give us a glowing 5-star review. And if you'd like to get in touch with your questions or band suggestions, email us at lastorders@spiked-online.com.